What is going on, all of you amazing gamers out there in the world? I am Megam, so thank you for watching this YouTube video, whether you are a new or returning viewer. Appreciate you stopping by. And today I just wanted to make a quick video that is somewhat topical, as the PlayStation 5 Pro has released just recently as of this recording. And it's definitely brought up some more questions. I mean, this has been going on for a little while now, but some more questions about how good can games get graphically, right? Where's the upper limit, right? Are we seeing diminishing returns when it comes to graphical updates of these games? And I kind of wanted to just like throw this out as like more of a potential discussion topic for the comments, but also give my quick 2 cents on it, right? Because for a while we've been seeing just games getting better and better and better. And I feel like, especially with this most recent generation with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, like the jump from PS4 to PlayStation 5 and then Xbox One to the Xbox Series X, I feel like hasn't been as big of a jump as previous consoles, right? There comes a time when we have like the technology to render these graphics is so advanced that, you know, the games start to look, of course they get better and better, but there becomes a plateau. Things slow down. And you know, eventually we're going to reach a ceiling, right? We can't keep improving graphics because eventually we get to the point where graphics in games almost look like reality, right? That's kind of the upper limit in terms of how good games can look. There is no continuous pushing, right? It is exponential, or sorry, no, I guess would that be, I don't know, it's been a while since I did math. Would that be logarithmic growth, right? We start off high, PS1 to PS2 is huge, into PS3 was huge, into PS4 was decently big, and then this gap between PS4 and PS5 generation, you know, I don't really know. And now it's interesting because we're getting the PlayStation 5 Pro, and many have questioned if we need it. And I don't know, because it really is an enthusiast platform, especially coming in at, what is it, $700 US, I believe. Especially coming in at that price. I think a big thing it could be really used for is like, you know, frame rate boosts, which I think we are seeing. For example, they highlight that here. I think for that it makes sense. Graphically, I know they're adding like ray tracing and like AI upscaling, which is great to make the games look even better, but is it worth the jump? Like, is it worth an upgrade from a PlayStation 5 to a PlayStation 5 Pro, especially if you already have a PS5? You know, some might say yes, some might say no. I feel like it is a very enthusiast console, so if you are a snob for graphics, like, yeah, you'll probably get the PlayStation 5 Pro. If you're a new person jumping in here, I don't even know, you might even go for the cheaper option at $500. It's still, they're both expensive, but $200 is still cheaper overall. They did have a technical video here. We'll put Mark Cerny in the background. What's up, bro? Shout out to GameSpot for uploading this video here. I think plus Sony did as well. I couldn't find it. Yeah, I feel like, you know, they really have been pushing like AI upscaling, ray tracing options, some frame rate performance. And like I said, I think the frame rate's great. I think it's great to have that as an additional boost with, you know, this upgraded hardware with this console. But is it enough to where it's worth an upgrade? I don't know. It really depends on your personal opinion, because games are already looking so good, right? Games already look phenomenal. Even the last generation games looked really, really good. And it makes me, it brings me back to the discussion about art style rather than graphical fidelity in games, because, like, I mean, look at these detailed environments. Like, they look fantastic, but at what point do you go for a more colorful art palette over something like graphical fidelity? And this this video is not doing it justice, because this is 1080p and this is on YouTube with its compression, so definitely not doing this justice. But I'm sure in person the PS5 Pro looks better than the PlayStation 5, but I mean, at a glance it's hard to tell, you know what I mean? And especially in the gaming industry, for potential consumers, you want to hook them immediately. You want to be immediately like, look at how good this game looks, right? And art style is way more important nowadays, especially with that, right? Because yeah, a game can be like graphically very realistic and impressive, but like a game with a gorgeous art style is really going to stand out. Look at the Plucky Squire. The Plucky Squire stood out in many gamers' eyes and viewpoints because of how visually impressive it looked, and just like the different types of art styles, especially the 2D sections as well. you know, and like this is something that Nintendo has excelled at for a while. I'm not going to make this a Nintendo versus Sony thing. I want to strictly mainly focus on Sony in this video, because they are the ones who are kind of pushing the graphical fidelity aspect and all these ray tracing options. Xbox does as well, but certainly not to the degree that Sony has been doing. And it really is just like a different, you know, it's a different path in terms of like what you want, you know? So of course you have the fidelity and performance modes. That's great. I'm one who usually chooses performance mode, to be honest, just because I prefer a higher frame rate over like extra ray tracing. I don't know. I see the frame rate, especially if it's a jump of like 30 to 60 frames. I see that as a huge jump, right? Compared to just added ray tracing options. Like, sure, you can make I suppose you can make a really good looking game look even better, but oh man, okay. We don't need the ad. We'll move away from that. But it's like, at what point, where's the ceiling, right? Where's the limit? I did pull up IGN's review, because apparently we review consoles. Have we done this before? Let me know in the comments below. I didn't know there were review scores for these consoles. They give it a pretty good, but it really is the price. You need to think twice whether or not to upgrade for the price tag. Right, it's an impressive console with noticeable boosts. Okay, so at least it's noticeable. That's good. I think for some games it's probably more noticeable. I heard in particular like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because it didn't run super well on PS5 and like it was kind of blurry with like that Vaseline effect, which really can, you know, take some players out of the game for sure. But giving a game like that a boost is great. I'm guessing it's probably going to be best for like third-party games that maybe didn't run the best and now they do. Yeah, and you can see here, like, considering the PS5 generation has largely been described as what if the PS4 was faster? Yeah. A little difficult to get all that excited. Yeah. Now, if it was a jump from the PS4 to the PS5 Pro and there was no in-between with the PS5, that might have been a more significant boost. But, you know, we're seeing limited potential with what we can develop for hardware, and we're reaching the ceiling of just graphical fidelity in terms of how good it can look, right? I think it really will start to come down to art style. You know, and I mean, Sony with a lot of their games are pretty realistic looking, like God of War, Horizon. They have Returnal, The Last of Us, Days Gone, which I don't know if I think they're making a sequel. I have no idea. Or maybe they canceled it. I don't know. Dragon's Dogma from Capcom. Final Fantasy is starting to look more realistic. You know what I mean? Like, Spider-Man. A lot of these series and franchises are going for more graphical fidelity, which is fair. Alan Wake, Resident Evil, you know, like they're going for what makes sense for them. But I really think it's going to be... Okay, that's a noticeable difference for sure with the ray tracing, the reflections there, which is good. But, you know, it's not something you immediately catch on to, right? It's going to take some side-by-side comparisons and really looking. Some people will notice it more than others, too. Like some people don't notice the 30 versus 60 frames thing, but I'm at this point, I definitely notice. So, you know, as a buy-in, you know, the $700 is tough, but, you know, Sony isn't just going for graphical fidelity with all of their games. You know, I wanted to pull up a comparison, and I think a great comparison for this is Astrobot, which is a game that I think is going to age visually a lot better than most of their games, right? Because this is not pushing graphical fidelity. It kind of is, but really it's art style that is making this game stand out. Just how colorful it looks, just all the different particle effects, which does come down to fidelity a little bit for sure, right? You're not going to be able to get a game that looks this good on the Switch, for example, with that outdated hardware. But the most of this game's like visual appeal does come from its just like colorful, playful, cartoony art style. And games like this to me are going to stick out more a decade from now. We're going to look back and be like, what were some of the best looking games on the system? Now you could argue, yeah, like a God of War, a Spider-Man, like of course, but like, what are people going to think of immediately? It might be the games that are more visually, artistically appealing, like an Astrobot, you know? And Nintendo has always excelled with this. I mean, people look back on certain Nintendo games, like the Mario games especially, have historically looked really good. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are an interesting scenario because those games aren't the most visually appealing, like in terms of fidelity, but I also feel like their art style isn't anything crazy. I mean, I feel like certain moments, maybe like the characters and stuff, but the environment's not so much, honestly, I feel like with those games. I mean, I think a lot of that is just due to the Switch's limited hardware in terms of that aspect, but Nintendo for the most part, I mean, like look at Mario and Luigi. Did I bring up the trailer? I don't think I did, because I wanted to keep this mostly Sony focused. Mario and Luigi, like, sure, fidelity, that game doesn't really have a lot, but artistically, the art style of that game looks fantastic. I like to think of games like Cuphead that look amazing to this day. There are so many cool options. It's one reason why I love Sega games, like older Sega games, just because the art style just still stands out to this day, right? And I think that's really going to stick out in the future when we look back on these consoles and say, okay, what games do we really remember just being visually appealing? And like I said, you know, it really comes down to what you prefer, but a lot of just like these visuals are come down to art style with games that really stand out. Not to say that, you know, other Sony properties don't have art style, but it's definitely not as much so as something like an Astrobot. So then again, you know, with the PS5 Pro, to bring it back full circle, pushing performance, pushing graphical fidelity, extra ray tracing options, AI upscaling, rather than, you know, art style, which comes down to the individual developer. It comes down to whatever the game is that they're making, right? It comes down to the theming. It comes down to the, like I said, the art style, right? And the color palette you use. That's really what it comes down to there. So that's a whole different beast. And, you know, having better hardware can allow the colors to look better, for sure, better contrast, better stuff like that. But it really comes down to developer and publisher choice in terms of how a game will look and what they decide the art style of that said game will be. And especially going forward into a future where I think we're gonna reach a stalemate at some point where graphical fidelity is going to really plateau. We're starting to see that, and it's only going to plateau more from here. Frame rate can go up, I guess, but like, you know, we will eventually cap off at a ceiling, and that's when it's really going to come down to designing games with a great art style, right? That's what it's going to come down to. And so I hope Sony continues to look at games like Astrobot that might seem like smaller releases, and, you know, do more of those, because this game looks fantastic, and with a great art style, you can make another amazing looking game. Nintendo's going to keep doing this going forward. They already have a variety of games to show off there. So, you know, I don't think Sony's in trouble at all in terms of, like, you know, not having games with a unique art style. I mean, look at Ratchet and Clank. I would say that has more of an art style for sure. But I hope they continue to introduce more of a variety. You know, it's unfortunate when they shut down the Japan studios that had visually very appealing looking games. Imagine some of those games like a Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper. I guess those aren't really that's not a good example. Those aren't the Japanese studios. Ape Escape, you know, modern Ape Escape, Gravity Rush. Like, imagine those with, you know, this level of graphical fidelity. Those would look amazing with ray tracing, lighting effects, all sorts of that kind of stuff at like really smooth 60 frames or even higher. Like, imagine that. That would be really, really cool. Will that happen? Probably not anymore. I don't know. Maybe like Sucker Punch could revisit Sly Cooper. Maybe Naughty Dog could revisit Jak and Daxter, but it doesn't really seem like it. It seems like the two going forward that are really going to push art style are going to be Ratchet and Clank and hopefully Astrobot, if even. You know, we'll see. I think the most recent Astrobot sold well, but it's tough to say. You know, I hope Sony continues to push very creative, artistic-looking games like those to really add some variety going forward when hardware is really not going to fully support, you know, more graphical fidelity. We're gonna reach a ceiling, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much gonna do it for here. Like I said, this is mostly discussion. I'm personally in favor of art style over just realistic-looking games, like more cartoony games. But then again, you need some graphical fidelity. You need adding ray tracing makes some of these games look even better in their respective art styles. So it really comes down to personal preference. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think we're gonna reach a plateau with graphical fidelity, or you think we can get better from here? You know, what kind of art styles do you like? If you got the PS5 Pro, let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Do you like it? Do you see performance boosts in certain games or visual boosts in certain games? And yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you all in the next video or a live stream. And until then, keep on gaming.